let's take a look at the built-in properties on functions. Okay, so I created a hello world function, and let's inspect it in the console. Console.dir, hello world. All right, so here's our hello world function, and this is all the information that the console provides to us about the hello world function. What I want to look at is its internal prototype, represented by dunderproto. And when I look at this, this is the object that all functions have access to. And this object has a bunch of methods that functions can use, such as apply, bind, call, toString, and the rest of them, right? And this is the general idea of the prototype chain, that there's one object and instances can share access to the properties that are on that object thanks to the prototype chain. They can look up their chain and get access to methods and properties on a centralized object. So hopefully that's a review and you're familiar with that concept. But what is this prototype property that our hello world function has? Well, let's take a look at it. Here I'll say hello world dot prototype. And when I look at this, an object literal is returned and it has a constructor property attached to it. If I do a deeper inspection on this, notice the constructor property is assigned a function, and that function is the hello world function that we have right here. It also has an internal prototype of its own because it's just an object literal. And looking at the internal prototype, it's the default internal prototype of all object literals. So, pop quiz. Is the internal prototype of hello world the same as this prototype property? And the answer to that is no, it's not the same property. JavaScript and Brendan Eich really wanted to make things confusing by naming multiple terms with almost the same exact name, right? We have this internal prototype or native prototype or dunderproto, right? And that's describing the prototypes in an object's prototype chain. But functions have this special, unique object, or I'm sorry, a property, which is called prototype, and it's just an object. And every single function has this property, and that object has a constructor property on it, and it is always a reference back to the function the prototype property is attached to. So let's see this here. I'm going to do, actually let me clear this so we have more room to work with. And I'm going to call hello world.prototype.constructor. And here you can see the hello world function with its definition. It's the exact hello world function that we have defined in our text editor. And let's say I created another function. Let's say function goodbye world, right? And I'm not going to add anything in the code block for now. What we really want to do here is just inspect its prototype property. So here I'll say goodbye world.prototype. And when I inspect this, notice an object literal is returned. And this is a unique object literal. Only goodbye world has access to this prototype property and this object. And looking at this object, it has that constructor property along with a reference back to the function the prototype object is attached to. So this prototype property is unique to function objects, and it has a purpose. Its purpose is when a function is used as a constructor function. And we're going to look into how we can make use of this prototype property with the create GitHub user constructor function that we already created in a previous video.